Hello and welcome to our first live on this channel. I'm Recia Davis,
And I'm Drew Davis.
and we are the creators of Live with Definiteness. We are super excited to be here today. We have an exciting video to talk about fear and why you don't need to be afraid no matter what the circumstance is.
So thanks for joining us. We're going to dive in a little bit because I think everyone's experienced a little bit of fear in their life before, right?
Of
Is
course.
that fair to say we've experienced some fear before?
Yeah.
And we all know what it's like. It's like you think that the thing that you're afraid of, it's like, that's it. It's the thing that's going to do you and make life, completely horrible. And it could be something as simple as getting told no,
Right.
that you can't have the thing that you want. It could be asking somebody out and getting rejected.
Right.
Fear that, the fun days of summer are going to end, or that you're not going to get everything that you want for Christmas, right? So fear can exist in a lot of forms, and we've experienced it all through the ages.
And I think most frequently fear shows up anytime we get that like bad feeling in our gut. Like when I have that feeling in my gut that something is off and something is wrong, a lot of times it comes down to fear being the root of that pain or of that discomfort. And it
Mm-hmm.
means something is off.
Yeah, it's like a lot of times you can use the way you feel to get better insight as to kind of what's going on. So if you feel afraid, sometimes it's your mind telling you something, right? It's our protection mechanisms kicking in, but sometimes we have learned protection mechanisms.
Mhm.
I mean, you could be the safest place in the world that you might imagine, but if the lights go out, I mean, it could be an empty room and the
Right.
lights go out and somebody says, "Oh, how do I walk across the room?" Well, 2 seconds ago, there was no furniture, no people in the room. You can walk, 20 feet across the room. But the idea that because once the lights are off and you can't see your way, that there might be something to be afraid of wouldn't really make sense. But you can still feel that sensation because of how you've kind of been trained.
Yeah, because I was even thinking about it today. I went on a walk in the morning and I even had this moment of, okay, it's dark outside. Like, what am I feeling? Is that fear? What am I afraid of? And, this all comes down to your ability to choose. And the reason why you don't have to be fearful of really anything is because you have the ability to choose. We all
Mm-hmm.
do exactly what we see in any given moment, in any given situation. And so these are what Drew had told me at lunch. He had used the term perceptional filters.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really cool term. Like I hadn't remembered hearing that before. But you get the opportunity to filter whatever or take on whatever perception you want for any given situation.
Yeah. And it's really one of these things where you look at the mindset you have, your outlook on the world. Like your mindset is really your perceptional filter of how you view the world. And so when you look at mindset and the types of mindsets you can have, I mean, it falls into a couple of categories. People will generally either have a fixed mindset or they have a growth mindset. Fixed in the sense that everything's just the way it's going to be, can't do much to change it, and no sense in trying to do a whole lot extra because it is the way it is. Whereas the growth mindset sees the opportunity, that sees the possibility. And that's so important in this case because the idea that you can see a better outcome allows you to shift that perspective. So your perceptional filters are the type that can allow to see the positive. No different than you can look at the word fear, FEAR, as, false expectations appearing real, or forget everything and run.
Yeah.
But if you've got a growth mindset, you can shift that mentality and actually position that to something different. And a growth mindset could see this as face everything and rise.
What?
So it's
That's wonderful.
it's all how we look at it. It's a spin in perspective, a shift in perspective that we want to keep in mind as it pertains to the word fear, because the saying, you could argue that worrying works because most of the things that we worry about don't come true.
Right.
So it's like, what's the sense in being fearful in something that's likely not even going to come true to begin with? So it's a lot of different levels we can think about this as we go through our different stages in life. I'm sure there's some, fully grown adults out there that might be scared of the dark just because of what they remember from childhood, even though they've had no trauma, no hardship, no bad things occur.
There might have been something, but it also is like what you've just heard.
Hmm.
you know, what
Yeah.
you've just heard. And usually it's like when you focus on the negative or when you focus on the positive, whatever you're choosing to focus on is what you do bring to reality.
Hmm.
That is what you do bring. And so if you focus on a lot of negative things or the worst outcome, or you focus on your fear in a way where you're like tied up in the emotion of it, then you will be more likely to attract other experiences that are going to make you feel that way and continue to make you feel that way. And so it's really cool because you have the chance in any given moment to decide what this means to you
Yeah.
and what are you going to do about it. And a lot of times, if you can recognize that you have that power, then you can control your experience all around.
Yeah, it's almost like, when you're in a dream, you can have a dream where, I don't know, you might be getting chased or something bad might be happening or is about to happen. And you might be, scared out of your mind. But then there's that part of you that also is kind of separate from the dream that knows, like, wait a minute, I'm in a dream.
Mhm,
So I can either like snap myself out of it, or if I don't have the ability to wake up right then, I can essentially notify myself some kind of way that this is just a dream. This is just a dream. You pinch
mhm,
yourself, whatever you do, but you recognize that this horrific experience or this scary experience, it's really not happening. You're
mhm,
not really getting, bitten by the dog or whatever
mhm,
traumatic thing you're thinking of. It's
mhm,
just a dream. It's just, a false expectation appearing real. And once you can step out of situations, even in real life, sometimes, oh, I see a big dog barking over there. If that's the fear that we're going to, pull in
sure.
his, if it's behind a cage and on a leash, there's less to be worried about. You just hear the sounds that evoke those sensations. So
Mhm,
try to remove yourself from the triggers that you received and say, hey, that thing that you're afraid of is locked up over there
mhm,
and of no threat to you. So you've got the ability to kind of have a moment of sanity, to take your
mhm.
breath and say, I'm effectively only dreaming. This isn't
Right,
really happening. I don't need to be afraid.
right. Like because you're thinking of that worst outcome.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because there's the fear like that where I think we tend to just know, okay, this is fear. Fear is being scared. And so, um, there's certain instances when you're scared. And so you very well might be listening to this and saying, I'm not scared on a day-to-day basis. I don't walk in the dark. I don't, you know, whatever. I don't walk around big dogs, or I don't mind big dogs, or whatever the case is. That's fine. But really, fear can manifest itself and can show itself in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
And that feeling where most people, I would say, or many people, feel the sensation of stress. Stress just is another word. It's a fancy word for being afraid. It's a fancy word for fear. And so I would say that many people might not agree with them being fearful on a day-to-day basis, but I would say that many people would agree with the fact that they're stressed out or stressed at all on a particular day. And if you are stressed, you're just saying you're scared in a fancy way, in a fancier way that makes you feel a little bit better because other people will relate and they will acknowledge and they will join in on that same feeling.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and the same goes for the word overwhelm. I feel so overwhelmed right
Mhm,
now. When you're overwhelmed, you're really stressed because you're worried that
mhm,
something's going to break, something's going to get dropped and broken. You're going
mhm,
to misstep. You're going to mess up. You're going to,
mhm,
make things bad happen. And so as a result, bad things are going to happen to you. And so we're kind of projecting that energy. But yeah, it's operating in a fearful state.
mhm,
And again, it can show up in different ways. I mean, some people have a fear of success.
mhm,
Imagine that. So it's like, doesn't everyone want to be successful? Well, not necessarily. What if you don't come from success? And
mhm,
to become successful all of a sudden makes you different, or be perceived as caring less, or
right,
have leaving those loved ones behind. So success can cause, if there's a fear of it, can cause certain hesitations, can cause you
mhm,
to not take action. Fear of being hurt is another example, right?
mhm,
If you're pursuing, love and happiness, but you've been hurt in the past,
mhm,
so you might not be willing to say those three dreaded words to
mhm,
your spouse or significant other. You can't find the way to say I love you, because the last time you said I love you, you had your heart broken.
Mhm.
You just dragged through the mud, or whatever other traumatic experience you went through. It's like that doesn't happen every single time. But if we tend to replay those tapes in our head and keep seeing those images, you set the stage to kind of operate in that fear-based mentality of someone that stays too protected and doesn't express themselves fully to allow that abundance to really come into their world.
Well, and you said you had made a comment that I want to go back on is, or go back to is, you said you feel like something might break or something might fall, you might drop something, right? And so I would like to pause right there and think about, okay, what happens if you do? Like, we're so scared to drop something, we're so scared to fall, we're so scared to fail, we're so scared to make a mistake. Why? Why? Where did that fear come from? Where did that fear come from? Where were you taught that if you make a mistake, then life is over? You know? So if you fall, let's say you fall, you make a mistake, you drop something, your bills can't get paid, your house is going to get foreclosed on, you're going to get kicked out in the streets, like this is what's going to happen. All of those things might not feel great as you go through that experience. But if you drop whatever it is that you drop, and those are the subsequent events, there's still nothing that says that your life is over. It actually could be the best blessing to you in disguise, and you just haven't found the right filter to put onto your perception there. And so taking a second to say, okay, what is the like outcome of this if I choose not to do this, or I choose to let this fall, or I do my best and it's still not good enough, right? Good enough for the success that I was going after right there. Like, I would take a second and think of, is there somebody in my made up scenario of having the house foreclosed on? Is there somebody out there in the world that has had their house foreclosed on, that they've been homeless in the streets, and they have still become a smashing success? And the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, not because we can go and turn on the TV and we can see somebody that's super famous and doing it. But I believe that there are also people that are successful because they make it financially, they make it famously, they make it in all these different categories that we generally consider success. But there's people that figure out the secret, and they figure out how to recognize that life is about lessons, and we're here learning and we're here getting lessons, and we have access to learning these lessons in all kinds of different ways. And so even if you fall, you can choose to get right back up. You can follow the path of somebody that has been there before, because people have been where we all are at some time in their past. It's just a matter of finding the resources, or being resourceful enough, or knowing how to change your filter so that you can see the positive in the like appearing negative situation.
Yeah. Because I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at how fear is a constant, it kind of changes form a lot. Like when you're little, you're afraid of physical things happening to you. The dog's going to bite me. The boogeyman's going to get me. The aliens are going to pull me into the ship and whatever. But as we get older, it's other more emotional things. She's going to say no to the prom dance, or to the marriage request. You're not going to get hired for the position. You're going to get turned down from the promotion. You won't get accepted into the prestigious university, right? You're going to get looked over for that management position or coaching position by somebody else. And so there are more things that go internal inside of us. It's just like, oh, and they actually, seem bigger and more painful in many instances than the things we once thought about as little ones. So the bigger and tougher and stronger we get, the more fearful we can be of things that aren't actually physical pain based, which just makes it a little kind of interesting.
Well, in a book I was reading recently, it talks about that we are so sensitive to our psyche. I think and like our psyche sensitivities, like we are so protective of our psyche sensitivities. And it's like something happens like that, or some fear is there, and we protect it so much that we end up protecting more and more and more things. And it actually ends up closing us up to those opportunities, because we aren't able to just go into a situation and recognize it for what it is. Instead, we are so focused on protecting what we are holding true, which is probably not true. We're so focused on holding that fear that we can't enjoy the beauty that's happening. Like wherever you are right now, can you look outside? Can you see the leaves on trees? Can you see the grass that's on the ground? Or even the snow. If you're in a place where it's snowing, or a desert, and you see the beach and the sand, it's like, look at how many little pieces of those things were created and were made, right? And how beautiful it is if you actually take a second to pause and to look at what has been created, right? And then it's just like, wow, I can focus on like how beautiful the sand is, or I can focus on how my life is terrible. Like, you get to choose. And if you can find a way to focus on how beautiful the sand is, and how, okay, this might not be the plan that I had, that I was going to go sleep on this sand for a couple days or weeks or whenever. But if you can focus on, I have some sand to go sleep on that's beautiful, then, while I get my house back, or while I go get another house, right? The speed at which you acquire the things you really want, or that you want more, or not want more, but the things that you are seeking, they are magnetized towards you.
So you want to, at the end of the day, you want to be able to take fear and kind of containerize it. Look at it as something that can be conquered. It can be outwitted many
Mhm.
times, because again, if you're just worrying about something that's, you ask a trusted colleague, would you be worried about this? Half the time it's like, no, don't worry about
Right.
that. You're just overthinking it. You're over
Mhm.
analyzing it. So whether you can get a second perspective on it, or take a time out to remove yourself from the situation to kind of look at it in its appropriate and put it in its appropriate place, or you just at a minimum shift your mentality and your attitude around it to say, okay, well, what's the more positive spin I can put on this, as opposed to latching on to the worst case scenario that could happen here. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just magically overcome all this? What would
Mhm.
that look like for a
Mhm.
moment? And then you start to project a more positive energy that's at least maybe going to help your mind, get off the bandwagon of this downward spiral. But you might even come up with some new and creative ideas and ways that you can approach your situation, that if they don't, give you peace of mind and help you to just relax and look at the situation appropriately, but it may even inspire you to have uh, new approaches you can take to get past that
Mhm.
fear and to get the growth that you need to kind of step on that old problem and that old fear that once troubled you, and look down on it later as like, what? I was worried about that. Nonsense.
Exactly right. So super excited that you guys were here today. We appreciate you. Um, I'm always happy and grateful for you being my partner in life and love, and live with definiteness.
Yes. Thank you.
And if you guys want to be part of our tribe, if you want to join us as we go up our mountain of success while we are alongside with you and you're going up yours, make sure to click the link in the description below, or go to livewithdefiniteness.com, and we'll see you on that side. See you later.
Thanks for watching.